Afternoon, everyone. I am calling the meeting to order. It is now 2:02, and welcome and thank you for attending the Thursday, January 27th, 2022 meeting of the Free City College Oversight Committee. I think it's been many months since we've met as an Oversight Committee, to the point that I have actually transitioned officially from the Mayor's Office as the Education Advisor, but I am representing the Mayor's Office this afternoon. I'm now the Director of Policy and Strategic Partnerships with the Department of Early Childhood. So I am still within the city and look forward to continuing working with many, if not all, of the committee members here in my new capacity. And with that, I also do want to introduce just really quickly the new education advisor in the Mayor's Office, Eileen Mariano, who is here this afternoon, and she's going to be observing, and she will then move forward with co-chairing with President Williams as well. All right, so with that, Jasmine, could you please take roll call?
Okay, thank you. And before we go into roll call, we just have a few announcements. Due to COVID-19 health emergency and to protect Free City College Oversight Committee members, city employees, and the public, city offices are closed. However, members and employees will be participating in the meeting remotely. This precaution is taken pursuant to the various local, state, and federal orders, declarations, and directives. Committee members and employees will attend the meeting through video conference and participate in the meeting to the same extent as they were physically present. For all members and employees participating in this Zoom meeting, we ask that you mute yourselves when you are not speaking. This will help reduce background noise. When you would like to speak, please select raise hand and wait to be introduced. Please remember to unmute yourself before you speak. Public comment will be available for each item on this agenda. Each speaker will be allowed 2 minutes to speak. Comments or opportunities to speak during the public comment period are available via Zoom and by phone. For Zoom users, from your screen, select raise hand and wait to be introduced. For phone users who called in, press *9 to raise your hand on the phone and wait to be introduced. You will be added to the queue to speak. Please wait until it is your turn to speak. When it is time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. For Zoom users, there will be a timer on the screen. For phone users, we will give you a prompt that sounds like this. Not the dog in the background. You will have 30 seconds remaining. While you are waiting, you will be able to watch and listen to the meeting from the phone. The system will notify you when you're in line and waiting. All callers will remain on mute until their line is open. All speakers, please account for the time delays and speaking discrepancies between live coverage and streaming. Best practices are to call from a quiet location, speak clearly and slowly, and turn down any television or radio background sounds. This meeting will be recorded and posted on DCYF's website. The first item on the agenda is the call to order and roll call. Members, please unmute yourselves. Co-chair Jenny Lamb. I see you. Co-chair Chanel Williams. Nikki Hatfield. Win My Kai. Angelica Campos.
Present.
Supervisor Gordon Moore.
Present.
Jennifer Fong.
Present.
Calvin Kwok.
Present.
Maria Sue.
Present.
Lisa Cooper Wilkins.
Present.
Alyssa Messer.
Present.
Christopher Brody.
Present.
And I believe Tyler Wu will be late. about 30 minutes late. Connie Ford. I think I see you there, Connie. Maybe she's finding her mute button. And I know that Vic Vine Chung is no longer on, and I missed the name. Who is their replacement? Can you repeat the name of the person who's replacing Vic Van Chung?
If I may, it was Juan Malinali Villalobos, and I can put that in the chat or email it.
Great, thank you. And Juan Villalobos. Okay, we do have quorum, Chair Lamb, and I will pass it back to you.
Thank you. There's a little delay with unmuting. Thank you so much, Jasmine. We will now move to have the adoption of the agenda, which moves us into the second item of this afternoon's meeting. So let's take a few minutes to review, just a minute, and we can also take a vote on this item. Just give it another 30 seconds to a minute. And at this time, do I have a motion for approval? I apologize if I can't see your hands, or so feel free to just chime in, please.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda. This is Chris.
Thank you.
Second, Jen Fong.
Great, thank you. And if there are no objections, is that correct, Jasmine? I can take that as a
Yes, we can approve the minutes.
Great.
The
agenda. And then this time we will also open for general public comment for agenda item number 3. Jasmine, are there any?
Unfortunately, Chair Lamb, we actually
Yes.
have to do roll call because
Okay.
it's part of the teleconferencing requirement.
Oh, my apologies. Okay,
Sorry,
so let's.
Jasmine.
Yes, we can go
So
through.
just to clarify, we've now adopted the budget. It was moved and approved. We will then
Agenda.
move, and I'm sorry, agenda, and then we will move. We will now move forward with the roll call
Great. Roll call, Chair Jenny Lamb.
here.
Chanel Williams. Nikki Hatfield. Win Mai Kai. Angelica Campos.
Present.
Supervisor Gordon Moore.
Present.
Sorry, it's not, it's to approve the agenda. Sorry, just to be clear.
Okay, thank you. Jennifer Fong.
I approve.
Calvin Kwok.
Yeah, approve.
Maria Sue.
Yes.
Lisa Cooper Wilkins.
Yes.
Alyssa Messer.
Abstain.
Christopher Brody.
Yes.
And Tyler Wu is going to be late. Connie Ford. And Juan Villalobos. So we should be able to move to the-
Jasmine, does that, we have majority for adoption of the agenda per roll call. And thank you, colleagues, for bearing with me as I work through the our procedures related to the virtual participation and attendance. So at this time, I'd like to move forward to the agenda number 3, which is general public comment.
And Anthony, do we
Jasmine.
have any public comments? Any folks in there?
Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm handling so much stuff there. We have one public comment.
Okay,
I'm going to bring him in.
Jasmine, do you want to give an overview of the?
yes. So members of the public may address the Free City College Oversight Committee on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Oversight Committee. With respect to agenda items, members of the public may address the commission for up to 2 minutes at the time such item is called. And we know that we have one person that is there for the agenda. And from your screen, select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous. If you choose, you will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. And we have a speaker in the queue. Speaker, please introduce yourself. You have 2 minutes, and they will begin now.
Yes, thank you very much. And good afternoon, committee members. My name is David Martin, and I am the Chancellor at City College of San Francisco. I wanted to just take a brief moment and introduce myself and thank you for the work that you are doing on behalf of the Free City College program and your work for our community and our students. And I look forward for the opportunity to work with you and the committee in the future. So thank you very much. And I appreciate the opportunity to introduce myself.
Thank you. Are there any more callers in the queue, Anthony?
There are no speakers in the queue.
All right. Seeing no additional speakers, and thank you to Chancellor for your welcoming remarks. Welcome back to City College of San Francisco. We look forward to a continued partnership. So seeing no other additional public comment, we will close public comment at this time. And we will now move into the next agenda item, which is the approval of the minutes, item number 4. And so this will be the approval of the minutes from the November 2020 and the April 2021 meeting. Are there any committee member questions on this item? And again, because I can't see your hands or your faces, please chime in. And Connie, are you speaking? Because we cannot hear your sound, I think, has been off. So maybe you might want to type into the chat if you're able to. Or we can have either Rebecca, maybe support member Ford, since I know she's been wanting to chime in.
Yes, it looks like she's talking, but we can't.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Connie, unfortunately. You may want to call into the number as well if you have your phone handy. That sometimes will resolve if the computer audio is not working. I think she may have a question, so let's just give it another minute or so. See if she can have member Ford dial in.
Chair, member Messer has her hand up.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, member.
Hi, folks. Good to see everybody. And hopefully Connie will be able to get her sound going. I guess just in terms of looking at the minutes, I just wanted to note that, right, these are minutes from almost 2 years ago, and then also from last year. So it's a challenge when we have a lot of turnover and we haven't met to sort of make the minutes make sense. But I did want to just raise the fact that there have been multiple times in the minutes we have made indications about things that we were committed to working on at the next meeting, and that hasn't necessarily shown up in our agendas at the next meeting. So I'm hoping that that's something we can talk about as we talk about the next meeting at the end of today, and sort of make plans for the future of the committee. Thank you.
Appreciate that comment, Member Mercedes, because of the, and certainly we will discuss further for future agenda items and making sure there's a continuum from each of the meetings and that and tracking our own progress as a committee. So thank you.
And I certainly want to recognize we've all been doing this under COVID and everything else. So it's great that people are here.
Yes, thank you. Member 4, are you able to get your audio? If not, I may have to move into a motion for approval. And if not, certainly please also type into the chat. Okay. So at this time, I'd like to get a motion for approval of the minutes for both November 2020 and April of 2021 meetings. Do you have a motion, please? And again, please chime in if I don't see your hands.
So moved. Commissioner Morrow.
Thank you.
Seconded, Jen Fong.
Thank you. Any objections? Okay. So with that, I will confirm that the motion has been approved for both of the meeting minutes. And at this time, Jasmine, can you see if there's public comment as well?
Yes, and I just want to confirm, do we need to do a roll call for this item?
Okay. So clarification, we will need to do roll call every time we take a action. Thank you.
So Chair Lamb,
Yes.
Chanel Williams, Nikki Hatfield, Wen Mai Kai,
Here.
and it's yes. Angelica Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Mar,
Yes.
Jennifer Fong,
Yes.
Calvin Kwok,
Yes.
Maria Sue,
Yes.
Lisa Cooper Wilkins,
Yes.
Alyssa Messer,
Yes.
Christopher Brody,
Yes.
Tyler Wu, Connie Ford, I see a nod, Juan Villalobos. Okay. And we have majority. And so next I'll go into the public comment. I'll read that blurb there. Members of the public may address the Free City College Oversight Committee on this item. From your screen, select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comment. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Okay, we can now, this item is now closed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we will now move into the next agenda item, item number 5, which is the resolution to allow teleconference meetings under the California Government Code Section 54953E, and it will require action. And again, our under the mayor's July 31st, 2020 order, policy bodies may meet remotely without advance approval from the mayor or the Board of Supervisors. But beginning on October 1st, 2021, policy bodies must regularly adopt findings to continue holding remote meetings. And under normal circumstances, the Brown Act imposes special requirements for remote teleconference meetings, including requirements to provide special notice to the public and to allow members of the public to attend each teleconference location and observe each policy body member at the location calling into the meeting. AB 361 suspends those requirements if the governor has proclaimed a state of emergency, provided that the policy body makes certain findings. Specifically, to invoke AB 361's provision, so long as the governor's emergency proclamation remains in effect, a policy body must make 2 findings at least once every 30 days. It has considered the circumstances of the state of emergency, and either 2A, the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the policy body members to meet safely in person, or 2B, state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. Jasmine?
Yes. Additionally, as you know, the mayor issued an emergency order in October 2021 requiring members of city policy bodies to be fully vaccinated by January 31st. As committee members, you should have been contacted by DCYF's HR manager, Kate Long, for your vaccination status. Furthermore, city policy bodies will resume in-person meetings on February 28th. Meetings must comply with applicable health order requirements, and all members must be fully vaccinated. Guidelines on a hybrid option for public comment is forthcoming. I would like to note that David Reese from the City Attorney's Office is here with us today if there are any additional questions.
Let's see. Thank you, Jasmine. And I believe I was looking to see if David is actually able to join us at this time. But are there any questions from the committee before motioning to approve the teleconference committee meetings for the next 30 days as it was described in the resolution, which was also included in the board meeting packets and documents?
Chair, this is Member Campos.
Yes.
So after the 30 days is over, would we have to renew it? I know governing bodies, I can't remember I think the bill, I think it's the emergency order. I know we have to, like, let's say a governing body puts one of these resolutions out, would we have to renew it in 30 days? If we still, deem it a health, oh my God, if we deem there still to be a health emergency and we still would like to meet online, would we have to renew it? Or is this like a one and done thing?
From my understanding, and I don't again see our city attorney, David Reese, on the line.
I'm here, Jenny.
Oh, you are great. Hi,
Yep.
David.
Hey. So the Brown Act says every 30 days, but my office is advised for bodies that don't meet every 30 days, then it's for every meeting. Is that clear enough? Meaning there's no need to convene an extra meeting just to continue making a finding every 30 days that that you still deem it unsafe to meet in person. So at each meeting, this resolution and this agenda item would be presented.
Well, I mean, maybe we're just optimistic, but just
Thank
like,
you.
we're kind of baked in.
And just a friendly reminder to members to please put yourself on mute unless you're speaking. You don't have additional background. Thank you so much. Were you going to say something, David?
I was. So I just wanted to, this is a good opportunity to say that, yeah, so the teleconferencing under the State Brown Act is contingent based on the governor's emergency declaration, and then locally we've been operating under the mayor's emergency declaration, but the default for the city actually goes beyond the State Brown Act, and so the default for the city is in-person attendance by all policy body members, and there is an intention for San Francisco's committees and policy bodies to prepare to resume in-person meetings as soon as March, possibly. So that's, being communicated as far as, positioning everyone to be prepared to do that. And the way we've done that is through vaccination requirements for members. And then if or when that happens, it's most likely to be in the form that Supervisor Marr is certainly familiar with, where the Board of Supervisors has been meeting in person, and those meetings are in person for the actual members of the body, and then a few, for the Board of Supervisors, it's the clerk and someone from my office, but the people who are just there to support, and then members of the public are not attending in person, but are participating, via Zoom or teleconference, either by viewing or also with the opportunity to speak as well.
Okay.
But that has been communicated by the mayor's office that everyone should be ready to resume in-person meetings.
Great, thank you. If there's no additional questions, I would like to ask Jasmine to open it up to public comment, please.
Yes, Anthony, are there any public comments? And I'll read the note here. Members of the public may address the Free City College Committee, Oversight Committee on this item. From your screen, select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
No speakers in the queue.
Thank you. This public comment is closed.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is item number 6, which is the Crow Audit Review Presentation. And joining us from Crow, we have Aaron Cohen and Mark Marcini. Hopefully I pronounced your names correctly. We will now begin with the presentation from Crow.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes. It's a little faint, but yes.
Okay, I could try to adjust the volume as I speak. This is Mark Marcini, partner with Crow, joined by my colleague, Aaron Cohen. We spoke at a previous committee meeting at the very beginning of this audit, but to introduce the audit, but I know there might be some new people on the committee and new people joining this meeting. So I did want to provide that brief introduction. Moving on, I wanted to cover a couple items with this presentation. We wanted to cover first the scope and objectives again, just to make sure everyone was on the same page for what we wanted to accomplish as part of this audit. And secondly, then walk through some of the findings from the audit, and then also discuss the results of the non-audit procedures that we performed. And I'll walk through those also at the beginning of this presentation here, so you'll have a refresher on what those were. If we may please advance to the objectives. Perfect, thank you so much. So again, there were 3 main audit objectives. The first one was to determine whether program funds were used in accordance with the stated purposes and permissible uses as agreed upon in the MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, and the San Francisco Administrative Code. Secondly, we were to look at whether unspent funds were returned to the program fund in accordance with the MOU and Administrative Code. And the third and final objective was to look at the controls around the financial and operational activities over the program fund and determine whether they were adequate. Overall, we had findings related to objectives number 1 and number 3, and those are summarized in this presentation. Objective number 2 was met in all significant respects, Therefore, that means we had no findings within our report for the second objective. Next, wanted to talk a little bit of, sorry, you may move forward to the audit findings. So next, we wanted to jump in and look at the audit findings. Before we did that, though, I just want to point out one quick item for those that may not be aware of this. This is an annual audit. Therefore, we are actually starting the second year audit. We just kicked that off with some introductory calls. So that audit will be underway shortly. That audit will have the same audit objectives and the same non-audit procedures as the prior year. We feel that we can help develop some trends with some of these non-audit procedures that we'll discuss a little bit later in this presentation that will help provide a little bit more powerful results around them. The first year, of course, everyone was getting used to the audit process. Many people were new to positions in the program. The MOU was new. So as we move forward into years 2 and years 3, we'll be able to develop a lot more trending information with these non-audit procedures and start to build some value around recommendations going forward for the overall program. So moving on to the audit findings, I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Aaron, to talk briefly about the audit findings and the non-audit procedure results.
Thank you, Mark. Can everybody hear me?
You sound good, Aaron.
Okay, thank you. So we, as Mark mentioned, we had we have some findings here. So finding 1 is City College use free City College program funds to pay for information technology support services that occurred but before the execution of the MOU. So we identified a total of $193,000 that were IT support costs that were for months prior to the execution of the MOU. And so we think that the recommendation here is for DCYF to require City College to implement procedures to evaluate all administrative expenses. And this is simply a timing issue on the part of City College. Finding 2, City College included $122,000 in costs for computer hardware for the counseling department, and the MOU does not allow for costs due to increase, or MOU does allow for costs due to increased staff hours for financial aid counseling staff. However, this would not include the expenses for new hardware. So the MOU just isn't clear on that. DCYF, the recommendation here is DCYF should work with City College to determine if the $122,000 of costs charged for computer hardware were eligible under the MOU. Finding number 3, City College did not provide support for the allocation of IT support services expense for the Free City College program. So for the audit period, $1.3 million in IT support services expenses were charged to the program, which includes the amounts identified in finding 1. And so City College allocated approximately 50%. They couldn't provide methodology or approval for that allocation. And so we think that the methodology needs to be developed and agreed upon with DCYF and City College, excuse me, and ultimately put into the MOU. Next slide. So finding 4, City College did not provide sufficient evidence to support the methodology for allocations of administrative salary. Payroll expenses totaled $565,000. We are questioning costs of $91,000 in salary and benefits for executive level positions that aren't explicitly called out in the MOU. And so again, here our recommendation is to better define the MOU, what's eligible and what's allowable, and determine the methodology for the allocations for administrative expenses. And finding 5, this oversight committee met less frequently than required by the MOU. The committee met less than every 4 months, which does not comply with the MOU, and we understand that during COVID, that was a challenge. So our recommendation here is to meet meet as frequently as the MOU requires. So I will stop there, and we can answer any questions on the audit findings, or we can, if there are none, we can move to the non-audit procedures.
Members, if you have questions specifically to the audit findings, please go ahead and ask now. Okay, hearing none, because I can't see all your faces. Go ahead and, go ahead.
Sorry, I've got my
That's okay.
hand up. It's Elisa Messer. I just was wondering if perhaps someone representing either, well, or perhaps from the audit can speak to, you know, this audit is from some time ago. Has there been process and procedures set in place that will help address these conversations? Has that begun to happen? Or are we still sort of in I don't know what the word is. Anyway, has this begun to be addressed is really my question. These procedures.
So as Mark mentioned, we're starting year 2 of the audit now, and that's going to cover academic year 20 and 21. Given that this report was filed in end of year 2021, City College may not have had an opportunity to fix it for the year 2021. And so we will certainly be reviewing the findings and determining if there have been adjustments based on the findings. But we don't anticipate, because of the timing of the audit report and the year 2, the audit period for year 2, that we'll see any of those updates until we get into year 21-22.
Thank you. All right, so seeing no additional questions or hearing none, we can go ahead and advance to the next part of your presentation.
Thank you. So outside of the audit objectives, we also had some non-audit procedures, and these non-audit procedures were identified by the city, but weren't necessarily tied to a law, an MOU, or something of that nature. And so these fall outside of the performance audit, but we call them the non-audit procedures. And so we still think that they provide useful information for the program moving forward. And so there were four of these. The first was to prepare cost analysis for the following city fiscal year and provide recommendations to help program sustainability. Wanted to determine how federal state aid is being leveraged in conjunction with the free tuition program. So holistic look at how monies is flowing for students. The second procedure here is going to be calculate the percentage of the total budget that was used for tuition and what was used for grants. Item 3 is going to be assess DCYF management and monitoring of the MOU, make recommendations for improvement, and then 4, determine how much revenue is generated to the college from the Free City College program. And we'll get into each of those in the next couple slides. So the first was prepare a cost analysis, as we discussed. And the key assumptions here are that enrollment will remain flat through 2025. And our source for that was the City College's multi-year budget enrollment strategic plan from November 2020. And that tuition would remain at $46 per unit. So the results, given those two assumptions, is that the program is sustainable for the foreseeable future. In fact, the fund balance could reach 50% or more by academic year 21-22. And so we recommend closely monitoring the fund balance to mitigate carrying a balance higher than the 50%, which is disallowed under the MOU. Next. So this second procedure wanted to calculate the total budget that was used for tuition and what was the percentage used to distribute grants to students. Here we obtained financial records from the city, or from City College for the academic year 1920 and calculated ratio of total budget to actual grants distributed. You can see the results here and how it's allocated across all the various expense types. And so you'll see 5.9 million, 40% to tuition, 4.2 million or 4.3 million, 29% for grants. You see how the other costs break down here.
Okay. Sorry, this is Tyler. Sure. Is there any way you could go back to the previous slide?
Yeah.
So in the result, I'm just curious, did you all do any calculation around how federal state aid is being leveraged in conjunction with this program?
Yeah, actually, Member Wu, thank you so much for your question. Why don't I do this? Maybe we'll have the auditors do the presentation. I'll take clarifying questions. We'll open up for public comment and then for discussion. How does that sound for procedures? Okay. Thank you, and thank you, members, for as I hadn't necessarily outlined kind of that process there. So appreciate you all hanging in there. Okay, go ahead.
I think we're ready for the next slide, please. Thank you. On this procedure, we were to assess DCYS management and monitoring of the MOU, make recommendations for improvement. So the approach here was we interviewed DCYS management, try to gain an understanding of their role with this Free City program. We talked to City College staff to gain a perspective of how they see DCYS role in monitoring the program. Looked at the MOU, relevant statutes, regulations, and then documented policies and procedures related to monitoring activities. We also reviewed other similar programs to Free City to identify potentially best practices or what others are doing, doing similar to this program. And so the audit report lays out many recommendations. I'll talk through a few here that I think are most important. First being, City College really needs to identify a staff member as completely responsible for coordinating Free City. We found that it was challenging to identify one person who had a handle on the entire process, from enrollment to tuition payments to sending it back. It feels a little bit siloed, and so one person who kind of oversees the program and make sure that the processes and procedures are in place so everybody who's involved is talking to each other. The second is pertaining to the MOU, and we feel that it needs to be a bit more specific in certain areas. First, it needs to be more specific in the definition of the return of funds, including a calculation. Quite clear. Also, the methodology for administrative salary and benefit allocations and IT support overhead allocations need to be defined very well. Approve the methodology so when City College submits for these for the reimbursement or submits their expenses, everybody understands what costs are approved through the MOU. Yeah, and to better define, I think the other thing is to better define administrative expenses. It's not quite as clear as it could be. And I think as the program evolves, defining exactly what could be in there would make sense going forward. We also think that the timing of the MOU is challenging. So the MOU currently talks about the academic year. And so the academic years can be fall, spring, and summer, 1920, 2021. However, the fiscal year is how budgets and accounting happens at City College. And fiscal year is a typical state fiscal year, July through June. And so it was challenging in the first year to identify the appropriate reports that we needed to pull that would line up to allow us to reconcile to financial statements, financial reporting for the fiscal year to what they're reporting as spent within the Free City program. And so that's not something obviously that can be fixed for this year, but it's something I think going forward, it could be helpful for reporting and monitoring on an ongoing basis. And then we also think that the MOU should be amended to add consequences for City College. Say if there are findings of non-compliance in the annual audit during this annual audit that are significant and warrant consequences to withholding funds potentially, or other consequences to kind of have some teeth to the findings. So next, please. So in this procedure, we try to determine how much revenue is generated at City College from the Free City College program. And you'll see we included a range here of $2 million, which would be the floor, which is the administrative costs and the IT costs that were allocated to Free City, up to the $12.2 million that were the totality of costs for the academic year 19 and 20. And so we include a range here because as we understand it, all fees and tuition paid to City College transfer to the state, and then those funds are pooled with other community college tuition and allocated in the form of a general apportionment. And so this apportionment is not always dollar for dollar. And so there's a potential to receive less less than was paid through the Free City College program. And so we're committed to reinvestigate this and identify, try to really drill down and identify what is the number, what's the revenue generated from the Free City College program, and provide some recommendations. Dig into a little bit more.
Aaron, we lost you for about 10 seconds. I might want to just repeat that final closing.
Okay, yeah, I was just saying that this procedure, we want to dig into a little bit more. I think we determined that it may not be a dollar for dollar revenue match, and so we want to provide recommendations so that if it isn't a dollar for dollar, we make recommendations to improve the MOU to make it dollar for dollar. Any questions?
All right, so let's go again. Let's open up for clarifying questions. I know that Member Wu had an initial question.
Yeah, I think it was around the first one. Yes, around determining how federal and state financial aid or aid is being leveraged in conjunction with this program. Just curious if you have any thoughts or can speak to that.
So I think when we looked at this, we really focused on the cost of the multi-year projection for Free City to identify whether it's going to be sustainable. We did obtain the federal and other state aid that were given to students, but the focus here was on the multi-year projection. So I don't have anything to speak to at this point. I think that's something that we can further look at as we get into year 2, and how they interact.
Any other clarifying questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Again, it's Elisa Messer. Thank you for this. That last comment you made about the non-audit procedure, the look into what the revenue generated was. I was just trying to follow, Anthony, I think you said at the very end to make it match the MOU, and I wasn't sure how the overall revenue, trying to determine the overall revenue benefit would relate specifically to the MOU or where that connection was. Can you help with that?
Yeah, I think what I was trying to say there is we want to identify if the revenue is not a dollar for dollar, if it truly is less than the amount given to the revenue is less than that amount, making recommendations to the MOU or potentially to changing state administrative code if that's where we end up, to ensure that the revenue is dollar for dollar. And we don't know yet exactly what would need to be changed to accomplish that.
I see. So the concern is actually to make sure that the program is not costing the college money to administer, that it's not being reimbursed for. Is that how I heard you say it just then? So
yeah, so my understanding is that the city of San Francisco provides, we know this, approximately $50 million to the college every year to administer this program. Some of these tuition payments get mixed in with all other tuition payments, which is then sent to the California Community College system, and then reallocated in the form of a general apportionment. And I'm not an expert in that, and so we'll have to lean on your financial experts. And so sometimes a larger school like City College of San Francisco may subsidize for smaller schools, and that would mean that some of these tuition dollars potentially could come back as less than what was provided from the city, if that makes sense. And we weren't able to really kind of pin it down towards the end of last year's audit. So this is a focus for us in year 2.
I see. So it's about potentially identifying a gap that has inadvertently been created. So I think that links to my other question, which has to do with the various administrative costs that were billed by the college that it seems indeterminate whether or not they were really the right costs to be billing. And I guess I'm curious to understand, so because some of them you said were about timing, and obviously the before your more recent audit, there was in fact a program. So things like the IT costs were probably never recuperated, even if they were recuperated, or even if the billing happened at a sort of at an off moment that ultimately wasn't helpful for the audit. It sounds like those were costs that were actually related to the program. It just, the timing was off. But others, it sounds like maybe we're not sure if the correct things are being billed for, like rather than billing for staff or looking for reimbursement for staff in the financial aid office, it was billed to computers, both of which were things that needed to be paid for, but not necessarily by the Free City program. Is that because were those, I guess I'm asking, were those staff members actually, did the college ask for reimbursement for those staff members that were approved, would have been approved?
Yes,
Does that make sense?
Yes. So there
Okay.
were types of administrative costs. I'm sorry, there's two types of what we call IT costs. It was IT hardware and IT support services. The hardware
Okay.
costs, the hardware costs were those computers that you mentioned. And what we said is that it's not, the MOU was not clear whether hardware was eligible or not. And then kind of left it to the city to make a final determination there. The support services costs, there are two things going on. One is the methodology for allocation. And then the second was the monthly ongoing support services costs that happened prior to the execution of the MOU were included in this new MOU. And so we thought that if you incur costs prior to implementing the MOU, shouldn't be allowable. The IT costs, the methodology, we just said there was no support for the methodology. There was no internal documentation around how they determined it was going to be 50% of total IT costs. There was no approval from the city. And so because of that, we questioned these costs. We did not go as far to say they were ineligible. We cannot make that determination. So we left it to the city and the college to determine what is eligible. So we're just highlighting it as a potentially questioned cost. And the same with the administrative salaries. There were specific folks identified as eligible to be included in this program. Some of those were, the people you would expect. Others were more executive level positions, and we felt that should be something that would be need to be approved by the city prior to spending the money on that. And so it really is open for DCYF, the city, and the college to work together to determine, what of these findings should be sent back and what should not be.
Great, thank you for that. That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor Mar.
Thank you. And first of all, yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Cohen and the other audit team members for your work on this. This is an incredibly important part of oversight, to the Free City program. And so, yeah, thank you. And I just had a few other questions, actually, to build off the questions that have already been asked. Going back to that I think Tyler asked the question about I guess it was non-audit procedure 1, where you were just looking at the program sustainability. So it's good to hear that the Free City program from your analysis is sustainable based on the amount that the city is allocating to it, the 15 million a year, what it started at. And I think now the annual allocation is $16.4 million per year, plus some cost of living increase. So it is sustainable, but it seems like you also found that almost on the opposite end of that, that there's increasing fund balance, so that maybe the cost of the program is less than what the city is allocating on an annual basis. And I think you mentioned, it says that the fund balance could reach 50% or more by this year, this academic year, which is what I think that in the MOU states that if the fund balance is 50%, then the excess needs to be returned back to the San Francisco City and County of San Francisco General Fund. I was wondering if you could speak more to that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think the driving forces behind this fund balance exercise is the enrollment and the costs, right? And so enrollment remaining flat as the budget increase year over year, and the tuition remaining flat as the annual budget increases is going to increase your fund balance. And so I think that those are the two driving forces, and I don't know if that's changed since November 2020, but if those remain flat and the budget continues to go up, there will be a point where the fund balance will reach that 50%, because the majority of these costs are going to be tuition costs, and if the tuition costs are remaining flat, the admin costs will level out as some of these methodology and allocations get ironed out. And so there should be a fairly steady state where I think we anticipate it to be about 12.5 million a year. There's allocated 15, 15.7, 16.4, as you mentioned. And so all of that said, if the enrollment and tuition remains flat, you're going to hit the 50%, and that's just just going to how it's going to work out.
Yep, got it. And or maybe this is more a question to City College or DCYF. Do you know what the current fund balance is? Because I think you showed. Can you show the next slide? Or yeah, so you're showing there. It looks like this in that chart. There's a fund balance of 2,754,000. But I think there was a starting fund balance of $2 million. So that means the amount would be 4,754,000 as of I don't know when this would be, July 1st, 2020. So do we know what the current fund balance is?
We do not know that yet.
I don't know if City College or DCYF knows that figure.
Supervisor, this is Maria. I will check. I don't think we have that number yet, but I'll check my CFO.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, that would be good to know. And especially if I think the auditor looks like projected that we might be hitting the 50%, of the baseline allocation in fund balance by this academic year. So that would be good to know and understand whether that's something we need to plan for.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Mar, did you have an additional question?
Yeah, and then maybe related to this, I'm sorry, there was Mr. Cohen, you mentioned another finding or recommendation that City College include more specific definition of return of funds. I was wondering if you could explain that a little bit more, and does that relate to the fund balance and when?
So that relates to annually returning funds to, and the MOU just isn't quite clear about what that means, and so I believe we'll have to determine what the MOU was meant to, what was meant in the MOU initially, and so I can't really speak to it because it wasn't clear to us when we did the audit last year.
Got it, but that is, you're referring to return of funds back to the City and County of San Francisco when that 50% of the baseline allocation is hit, and the need for more definition and clarification of that. Is that
correct? Yes, yes. Because the MOU, I think that previously the dollars weren't all sent to City College in an invoicing type of connection or relationship, and so I believe from the old MOU to the new MOU, just wasn't clear exactly what they meant by return, what the MOU meant by return of funds to us. And so that's what we want to understand better.
Great, thank you. And just maybe one final comment on these issues. And again, it's really helpful to have this come out in the audit report. Is I think if we are in a situation where there's a growing fund balance for Free City, and even the potential where City College is going to have to return some funds, start returning funds to back to the city, I think we should really think about, are there other needs for the program that those funds could be used for to really strengthen the program, whether it's around student retention, outreach and marketing of Free City to increase enrollment, stuff that we've already talked about before. So I just wanted to flag that. And I would like to recommend that as a future agenda item when we get to that.
Great, thank you, Supervisor. Member Kwok?
Yes, thanks to the audit team for the presentation. Just a quick question. You mentioned that the new annual audit will cover the same audit objectives and non-audit procedures. So it's going to be the same items, or are there going to be any additional audit objectives or non-audit procedures that are going to be included?
This is Mark. I can answer that one. So it will be the same. It will be the same procedures, both for the objectives and the non-audit procedures, just for the new academic or the new year for the MOU. So it will be the same though. And if you're looking, if you have suggestions related to the non-audit procedures, maybe potential enhancements or things that might be an interest or a focus for you, I would recommend talking with the city and DCYF about that, because we're more than happy to modify these non-audit procedures or swap them out if we feel they're not adding the value needed for the program, because that's really what we're trying to do with these non-audit procedures is develop additional value for the program and the sustainability of the program. So that's obviously a conversation we can have. Right now, year 1 and 2 are the same, but it doesn't necessarily mean year 3 has to be for the non-audit procedures.
Mark, for a clarifying question, could you again kind of give an overview around the timing, kind of your annual timeline, so then members can get a sense of, when is it, a time where we can actually give this feedback, and when is it like the point of no return?
Yes. So this year, obviously we're looking for an advanced timeline. We started off the second year. We kicked it off. Right now we have just the documentation. We had an initial kickoff meeting and the documentation request. We're hoping to receive the documentation, this year within the next couple weeks. We're thinking that the timeliness of this audit will be more efficient, just because everyone's used to going through this already. We've just been through it, it seems like. So we know what kind of reports we're needing, and the college knows how to produce those reports. But we're looking then to have the main part of field work mid-February through March, wrap up procedures in April, and then get the report into the May and June timeframe. And then the third year, we would actually like to escalate even further. So I know it's from one aspect, it feels like we're doing an audit and then starting another audit right afterwards. But in reality, we would like to have the audits shortly after the period end, after the audit period end, as soon as the college is able to, close out the records for that period, so that we could provide this feedback and this information, as timely as possible, so it could be remediated going, for future years.
Great, that's helpful. Thank you. Director Sue, Maria?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to follow up with Supervisor Marr's question. regarding the balance in the budget right now. So we are looking at $5.3 million that is a balance right now. I think the question, or in the reserve. So the question right now is determining what was the point of revenues that we need, the 50% point for this amount. Because we do know in year 3, it goes up to 16.4 million. And so the 50% point at 16.4 is 8.2. And so I believe that the 50% point for year 2, which is where we are now, is at 7.5. And so with the reserve, with the balance right now being at $5.3 million, we're very close to that 50% point.
Thank you.
For that clarification. Okay, I don't see any additional hands up. Jasmine, let's open it up, see if there's public comment, and then I'll come back for any closing questions and discussion.
Okay, thank you. So members of the public may address the Free City College Oversight Committee on this item. From your screen, select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Thank you. So there's no public comment. Any final questions, discussion you want to raise? I want to appreciate the members, including Supervisor Marr, bringing up about future agenda items. We'll get to that. I think certainly the carryover is a top of mind. You know, reading that particular threshold and future conversations around how to strengthen the program, the supports that City College needs, and some of the other things we've raised around student support. So I see a couple hands up, so I'll go to member Jennifer Fong, please. Jen Fong.
Thank you. Yes, I was in relation to Supervisor Marr's comment. I was wondering if any of that carryover could be used for dual enrollment. In essence, dual enrollment serves as a marketing tool for students to matriculate. And I'm wondering if that might be something we could discuss at a future meeting, and if that's part of the Free City rules that's allowable. Thank you.
Great. Staff, please note that as well. And next we have member Brody.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge really quickly the fact that, you know, one thing that was mentioned in the audit findings was that there was difficulty finding any clear person who had the full scope of the program, and that there seemed to be missing continuity. And I just feel like that's kind of been something that has been an issue. Just timing has been horrible. There's been so much turnover in the finance area. We've all known that for a while. It's kind of common knowledge at this point. And my hope is that it will hopefully stabilize and get better. So just wanted to voice that.
Thank you. And Dr. Wilkins, I don't know if to put you on the spot. Certainly we can come back at a future time that doesn't have an answer from the college, but anything that you would like to add around kind of that point, the findings of recommendation of a point person from the college?
As it relates to a point person, I think the discussion at the cabinet level was that I would continue to serve as a point of contact for, you know, more of the programmatic pieces of the program. And then I would work closely with my colleague, Dr. John Alameen, who's the Vice Chancellor of the fiscal area, to continue to stay abreast of the components related specifically, say, to the audit findings and the fiscal sort of controls of the program.
Thank you. And Member Brody will also carry that forward too. Will be acknowledged in the minutes for future discussion or follow-up. So at this time, I do want to close this agenda item, and thank you so much to our auditors. I remember when we were first getting started, and both from the program design, and really landing on how do we, match up to our outcomes through the MOU, that shared MOU between the city and the college, and really, thrilled to have your expertise and professionalism in working and continuing to strengthen the outcomes for the Free City program. So thank you all. And it sounds like you're just going to continually be with us, because as soon as you finish one, you're going to head into the next year. So with that, I do want to go back to some business, and I apologize. I did not take a roll call vote officially, as we are acknowledging the teleconferencing. So we will need to go back to agenda item 5, do a roll call for approval of adopting the teleconference resolution.
Great. Thank you, Chair Lamb. Jenny Lamb,
Yes.
Chanel Williams, Nikki Hatfield, Win Mai Kai, Angelica Campos,
Yes.
Supervisor Mar,
Yes.
Jennifer Fong,
Yes.
Calvin Kwok,
Yes.
Maria Sue,
Yes.
Lisa Cooper Wilkins,
Yes.
Alyssa Messer,
Yes.
Christopher Brody,
Yes.
Tyler Wu,
Yes.
Connie Ford. I see a head nod. Melanali Villalobos.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We have adopted that resolution. So we will now shift back to item number 8, which is future agenda items. I think this really tees up, since we have not been together in a while. I think we have some clear ones, but before I open it up to formalizing future agenda items, including scheduling future meetings, so we can get everyone's schedule, so we can stay on task and fulfill our commitments through the MOU meeting 4 times a year. Let's see if there's public comment, Jasmine.
Members of the public may address the Free City College Oversight Committee on this item. From your screen, select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Great, thank you. And at this time, before I open it up, and I'll try to do some recap of what I've heard thus far in our meeting for future agenda items. I didn't know if Lisa, Dr. Wilkins, if you had any updates that you wanted to share with the group that might be relevant to this agenda item from the college.
Really quickly, I was just going to ask, are we doing any Free City general updates now, or is this just a...
Yes, let's do that, and we have to fit it within this agenda item, but I think it pertains, because of this will then kind of set the course for what we want to address in the coming months and year.
Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to share was that the compendium report that went with the presentation from last spring is available. I'm not sure if it's appropriate for me to share it via the chat or how we want to distribute that. It is, again, just a basic overall summary of the data portion of the presentation that has already been given to the Oversight Committee in the spring. So there's no new information there, but I think the piece that's most salient to this discussion is the next steps portion of that document that talks a bit about obviously the successes that the program has enjoyed to date, but goes then into recommendations about how we might look forward with the Free City program, and the things that we could do to not only create more financial stability for our students in their pursuit of higher education, creating a stronger foundation of fiscal literacy and the role that that can play in their success, but also some additional strategies, particularly now that we think about all of the resources that are available to help support students' basic needs. And since that spring meeting, and even after the compendium report was compiled, for instance, Free City has just been awarded one of the Spark Point Center grants by the San Francisco United Way, again, enhancing our ability to address our students' basic needs on a much broader scale, which, as you look at some of those sort of summation of how the program could potentially impact students. And I've heard this from multiple people already today, including Supervisor Marr, about, how can we further address students' needs outside of the, the free tuition part, which of course is part of a game changer. So there are some recommendations, again, in those next steps that align very closely with, again, what I've heard from others in terms of thinking about how we can develop additional metrics for success of the program, think about supporting more specific strategies and approaches, whether that be in outreach, whether that be around embedding more mandatory ways of thinking about incentivizing students' knowledge around financial literacy, also how we might rethink whether or not thinking about FAFSA and how requiring that helps support students understand in total the types of financial and other kinds of resource supports that are available to them so that they're leveraging everything possible to help support their success. And then how we think about embedding that in as a more of an incentive for students. So one of the things I would love to do in a future meeting, and I heard that expressed as well, is that we dedicate some time to exploring that. We talked about this in the spring meeting, partnering with the research and planning group, our RP group, to explore that in much more detail. So I would love to come back to a future meeting where we could spend some dedicated time exploring the wide variety of possibilities to think about future changes for the program.
Thank you, Lisa. And I actually would recommend that actually be top of the order of the agenda for the next time the Oversight Committee comes together, because I think that will ground, very much to some of the other aspects that members have raised today, like Supervisor Meyer around, how does that connect with the increasing of the fund balance? What does that mean? And I think there's also that might also pertain to having some dialogue. Then are there other things within the non-audit procedures that would also be, relevant or important to be able to tie into knowing the greater context of some of the recommendations coming from the college and around student life and experience overall. So if we can take note there. Thank you, Dr. Wilkins. I'd like to open it up now to members, both either questions for Lisa as well for related to the college and some of the very high level recommendations, even though they were covered, in a very high level, and we'll dig a little bit deeper next time, but and also any additional items, agenda items that you want to see be addressed. Member Wu?
Yeah, I mean, I love the conversation we're having about, I think free college in this sense is definitely the first step, right, into making college more accessible and affordable for students, particularly low-income students of color. And I think I love the conversation. I mean, I love where we're headed in terms of thinking about holistically, how are we going to then support students? As we have that conversation, I would really push us to really think about how do we streamline the information and resources that are going to our students, where they only need to display that they need financial aid once, right? And then we're able to triage and provide those resources to them. I'm super curious and fascinated by how we do that and provide that streamlined information. And then more generally, I don't know if this is available, but I'd love to hear any student stories, or if there are any takeaways of students who've gone to participate in this program and it's had a profound impact on them. I think it's one important for us to listen to as members, but also to share it with other students so they can see themselves in this program and have benefited from it. So if that's possible to source or to come up with, I'd love to see that.
Lisa, I know that there was a lot of work that the team at the college had also done to really highlight the impact that Free City has had, both in students' lives, but also on the college itself. So maybe that's also a request too, for the next time the college gives a report of the recommendations, so that can also be incorporated as well. Thank you.
Great.
And I just wanted to also follow up to member Messer's ask, and it has been a continual ask of, when from our minutes, if there are follow-up items to how to ensure that work carries forward. And I think that will be critical for the chairs, the co-chairs, so soon to be Eileen and Chanel, as well as working with DCYF to make sure that we kind of close the loop on those items. Thank you. Member Messer.
Yeah, thank you for lifting that back up. Set particular agenda items, including the discussion around what we might do around fund balance and where the gaps are, where students aren't being reached. Those things have been consistently named as something we want to look at, but we haven't come back with those as agenda items when the agenda comes forward. So that would be really great to do. I also notice two sort of very pressing things just in terms of timeline. One is that I heard the auditors say that if there were items that we wanted to request were looked at, we would need to get those in the next month. And then the other is the possibility that the fund balance will reach its limit. So it seems to me that we, much in the last couple of years, I've discussed meeting again in the next month, and I wonder if that's something we could commit to doing this time as opposed to waiting 4 months. It seems like there are some things that could use more conversation sooner. So I'd like to request that we discuss meeting again in the next month.
Right. Do I see any objections or comments to that time frame? Okay. Go ahead, Supervisor Moore.
Chair Lam, yeah, I would support that. I know we're all really busy, but I do think, given that this is the first meeting we've had in quite a long time, and I think there's some time sensitive and urgent things to discuss, particularly relating to the fund balance and then potential use of those funds instead of returning them back to the city to strengthen the program. And to support student success and retention, and hopefully also grow enrollment in the college. I'd be very interested in having a follow-up meeting sooner rather than later. And then I just had one more sort of practical point to make is I was just kind of looking for the different documents related to Free City, and I couldn't find them online. I think DCYF, I don't know, Director Sue, if you guys have I couldn't find that. You guys used to have a good page where you had all the historical documents, all the MOUs, and I couldn't find that. And so it'd be helpful just to have all the audit reports, the annual reports. I think this is the first time I've seen the annual report that Dr. Cooper Wilkins shared in the chat. Maybe it was sent to us. And then even for this meeting today, we didn't receive the full audit report. It was just the slides for the presentation, but I was able to dig up the full audit report from an email I got from the controller's office, but I'm not sure if everyone else on the committees received the full audit report. So I think it'd be helpful for everyone, for there to be one place online, whether it's DCYF or City College, that just has all the documents. Yeah.
Through the chair, Supervisor Mar, absolutely. I thought we actually did have a page on the DCYF website, but I will check and make sure.
Yes, I think Rebecca just dropped it into the chat as well. And if we can please have DCYF staff to make sure that the detailed audit is also uploaded. Oh, it looks like it is in there as well. And do you have a request to, I believe, Lisa, that there is on the City College website, I think there is also its own web page to Free City. So I think certainly maybe having the two entities kind of match up to make sure that we have the alignment of those documents, that'd be great.
Great, yeah.
Just briefly for Supervisor Marr's sense of sanity, I would say, I know that yesterday I was able to download some of the information, and when I went back today, the page was completely unlinkable and not there. So it may be that there was a glitch that happened sometime today with some updates, and that's why you couldn't find the page, and it may or may not still be down. But there was definitely a page, and then there wasn't a page.
Technology. I just clicked on the link and it's on, so it's up. But thank you, Supervisor, for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you. And so it does sound like, you know, given the timing and discussions around, you know, the fund balance and really understanding those recommendations from the college around the student experience, I'd like to ask DCYF staff to, you know, work with City College, because we also want to make sure that the college, you know, is able to have the data presentation. I know it takes a bit at times to pull that all together, but I think it's been expressed here about the importance of meeting, you know, within the next month or so to make sure that this work can continue that momentum.
So Chair Lamb, I just want to make sure that I understand next steps. So we as a body agree to meet next month. So I will work with Dr. Wilkins and her team, as well as with the auditors, to make sure that we can find some time that works for everyone. And then I will share a couple of dates with you all. And then in that meeting, we're going to discuss some of the non-procedural items that we would like the auditors to look into, and then take part of that time to also discuss developing perhaps guidelines for or starting a policy conversation about how to and what to do when there are fund balances, as well as a policy for return of funds to the city. Is that?
Yes, and additional, I would like to ask, you know, if there's any staff responses from the audit, just to kind of, again, continue that continuum of progress, because as it was outlined by Crow, that, you know, they're going to be shifting into field, finalizing, you know, by May or June, and then they're headed into the year 3 audit soon after. So I think that's just helpful, again, to kind of be able to see that progress, and since we did not necessarily dive into staff responses, but it also gets wrapped up into some of the next steps that we've discussed today. Thank you for that that roundup. It's really helpful. Okay, and member Messer.
And again, I just want to make sure that that's not the full agenda that's been summarized there, and that we will go back through for the last 3 or 4 meetings and look at the agenda items there to be discussed.
Thank you. Okay. So at this time, Jasmine, I want to make sure I'm fulfilling our process. We did open up item number 8 for public comment, correct? And we closed?
I don't think we did.
Okay.
So let's do that. Members of the public may address the Free City College Oversight Committee on this item. From your screen, please select raise hand, or from your phone, press *9. Please wait to be introduced for your turn to speak. When it's time for you to speak, you will be brought into the conversation by the Zoom administrator. Please state your name, and of course, you have the right to remain anonymous if you choose. You will have the standard 2 minutes to provide your comments. Anthony, are there any speakers in the queue?
There are no speakers in the queue.
Seeing none, public comment is closed.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And before we close for the evening, I just one additional note for staff, because we'll be meeting sooner, within the next month. If at that meeting, we could also bring forward future meetings for the rest of the year. So that way we can have it on everyone's schedule and make sure that we continue meeting at more regular basis. Okay. Well, before we close, thank you all. It has been an honor and privilege to work with you all through the Free City College. My work doesn't stop here though. I'm still in the city. Just really appreciate all the leadership, the commitment to our students and to the sustainability in Free City program and for the college overall. So with that, I'd like to do adjournment, and I believe do we need to take an action for that, or can I formally adjourn as chair?
I believe we can adjourn.
Okay. Thank you all. Take good care.
Thanks, Jenny.